Iron and Infrastructure Podcast Introduction. The podcast that ties together fitness and construction, shifting the industry narrative and giving insight on how to become a business owner while living life under the bar, weightlifting, personal development, the infrastructure industry, and how to merge the two worlds to achieve prosperity. Now introducing your host, Jacob Emery. All stand and applaud, please.
This episode is brought to you by R&R Pipeline, an infrastructure company. Our purpose? Enhancing America's infrastructure with a safety-driven, integrity-led culture that provides an environment for team members to grow and thrive. All right, welcome to the Iron and Infrastructure Podcast, and today I have a very special guest. He is somebody that I don't know very well. I've only talked to a few times, but my God, are you guys in for a treat. So if you don't have a pen and paper, I would suggest getting out one because you're probably going to need it after today. So this man that I'm getting ready to introduce is a founder of Here Homes. He had a political consultant agency for 10 years from 2011 to 2020. He's served as the president of the Dallas chapter of Entrepreneurs Organization, or EO. He might be someone that's superhuman because he has finished the Dallas Marathon twice, and he has done the Hotter Than Hell 100, which I'll have him explain, the Big Dam Bridge 100. He's a pilot. He's a member strategic coach and the founder of Superpowers. So Ryan Cassin, I really appreciate you coming on today. I cannot thank you enough. You're absolutely fascinating as far as what you've accomplished in life. So let's start with the Hotter Than Hell 100 and the Big Dam Bridge 100. I just got to know what it is. Tell me all about that.
Yeah, incredibly grateful for the opportunity to be here, Jacob. Thank you for the opportunity to join you. The Hotter Than Hell is a bike race that happens in Wichita Falls, Texas in August, late August. And August, September timeframe in Texas, consistently in that 105 to 110 degrees. And this is rural Texas, so not a whole lot of tree cover. Really, really big open spaces. The wind whips around as the earth heats up. So the race starts at 7 a.m., right? And you're going to go 100 miles. And it's really a race against time in some ways. So the sun is just barely coming up at 7 a.m. It's still relatively cool. And by relatively cool, I mean, call it high 80s, low 90s. The breeze is still warm, right? And you shoot out of the gate and go as fast and as hard as you possibly can because you're in a race against that sun coming up. Because when the sun comes up, not only does it get very, very hot very quickly, but that rapid heating, that change in temperature creates some really tough winds. And so you're fighting the wind, you're fighting the heat. And then on top of all of it, to add insult to injury, the back half of the ride is chip seal, which is sort of this bumpy, it's this bumpy, like really rough, you stop pedaling for a second and you're dramatically slowing down. There's no glide, right? And so it's a ton of fun. It's an amazing race. Everybody who is a cyclist should do it once in their lives, but once might be enough. Interestingly, for anybody who has seen a Camelback, right, those water packs that go on the back of your shoulders, that was actually invented at the Hotter Than Hell. A nurse who was competing in the Hotter Than Hell threw an IV bag on the back of his shoulders and was drinking from it throughout the race, and that's where he got the idea for the Camelback and that whole line of products. So it's also been a source of great pain as well as innovation for entrepreneurs.
I can imagine that. So what kind of mental presence do you have during this? It has to be absolutely incredible to go through that. It has to be excruciating at some point, but what does the mental strength component look like as far as getting to the finish line?
Yeah. It's interesting. The race days have always been the most fun for me. So I ride in groups to help train. Like we'll do our long rides, and every month there will be 100-mile ride that this group that I ride with goes out and does. And so by the time you get to the event, you've got the 100 miles in you. That's almost, it's sort of, you kind of go in with a high degree of confidence that you're going to finish. And that alone, that confidence allows you to completely change how you view the day. It is certainly a challenge. There are certainly up moments and down moments, But the reality is that you've got this crowd. They do a flyover. There's a crowd at the beginning at the start line. They blast the big cannons to start the race. There is great support along the way. So there are people cheering at all the aid stations along the way. Anybody who's been in a marathon, it's a very similar dynamic where you feel like, at least for me, who's never going to be a professional athlete, it's the closest to being like a professional athlete that you can get, right? You've got a cheering section. You've got people who want you to succeed. And so race days have always been a completely different dynamic when I've had the confidence going in that it's going to be a good day.
What's the time frame roughly as far as start to finish completion?
Yeah, so for me, relatively slow. So call it 4.5 hours. All things all in. Sometimes 5 hours, depending on the ride. The benefit of Hotter Than Hell is that it's largely flat. There are some mean hills just mixed in between, but Big Dam Bridge was much hillier, and that was a much tougher ride in some regards, even though it was shaded and it was a better time of year. So it all just depends on the ride, but if you can do it in 4.5 hours, you're doing pretty well.
That is absolutely incredible. My attorney, Jim Havens, is a cyclist himself, and he had done a lot of long rides, and some of the numbers that he had done, I think 24,000 miles in 10 years was what he had rode. And I think that was over 55 to probably 50 to 60-year-old time frame. So it was later in life. Absolutely incredible. I tell you what, you guys are incredible for being able to go do something of that nature for that long. So let's talk about wellness in general. What does wellness do for you as far as building your personal infrastructure? What's your daily routine maybe look like, or what are your go-tos as far as exercise?
Yeah, so wellness and just generally thinking about health span as opposed to lifespan, as Peter Attia talks about, is really, really important to me. And it's two things. Of course, it's about staying healthy and just being well and being able to perform at a high level. But really, it's about being able to clear my mind and have a space where I am able to disconnect from screens. I'm able to disconnect from my phone. I'm able to just be fully present in the moment, thinking about brick by brick, block by block, what do I need to do in the next 5 minutes, 5 hours, whatever it is, to be able to achieve the goal over the long term, right? And then B, it's something that I fully control, which I think is really important to me maintaining my sanity, because I live in a world, as many entrepreneurs do, where you aren't in control of a lot. A lot comes at you. There's a lot of response. You've sort of got a game plan and a vision, but as soon as you hit the reality of some situation, there's a lot of unexpected things that happen. And so having a domain where you can consistently build over time and be fully in control and fully present, that for me is the most important thing. And routine wise, I'm on the bike at least 5 times a week. Again, it's that at least that 1 hour of being able to be completely disconnected from everything else and have space to think. And I think that's so important to be able to get away to have good thinking time. Anybody who runs at long distances gets in the zone. There's very much similar dynamics when you're cycling. You sort of get in the zone and your brain kind of, clears out of everything, right? And then I have a trainer that I see twice a week as well, which I've recently added, but trying to add that component to the routine more regularly. The cardio has always been easy for me. The strength training piece has never been my jam. It's sort of like I was good at algebra in high school, but not so good at geometry. It feels very much like that to me.
Yeah. So I'm the complete opposite.
Yeah.
Strength training has always been something I've been very passionate about and did a lot of. Cardio used to be a lot easier than it is now. Now with injuries, I don't do as much as I probably should. Used to play basketball and some of that nature, but the cardio portion, for me, just to go run or go cycle long distance, it's much tougher for me to get up and go do that, but I can go throw iron around all day. You touched on something very powerful, though, about being present. I know for me, I get on a bike to warm up, so 10 or 15 minutes every morning when I'm at the gym. And lately, probably the last 6 months, every time I hop on that bike, I am so present and in the moment. And that warm-up session isn't a physical thing. It is really mental gratitude and just appreciation for my life, where I'm at, where I've been, and where I plan on going. And it might be something like looking at the ceiling at the old school gym, or looking at a magazine cover that's in the gym that I've never seen before, just having pure presence and appreciation for the moment, complete gratitude for the opportunity to be at that. Is that something that you also experience on the cycling side, where you can think about past situations and have gratitude for where you're at now?
Totally. And one of the beauties of, sort of that daily routine ride, right? The one that it's the same course I always ride. It's extremely predictable. I could practically do it on autopilot, is that it gives me an opportunity to get bored, right? And that is, bored is like the ultimate luxury these days, yes, right? Nobody, the truly wealthy have the luxury of being able to get or be bored. And I think it's in that boredom, that space, that you can find the time for the gratitude, for the reflection, for the thinking about your thinking, all of those things that they don't come naturally in life, and you have to work to find that space, to be able to create that space intentionally. And I think it's one of the biggest gifts we could give ourselves, is the consistent routine of being able to have that space to think. And sometimes it will show up as gratitude. Sometimes it will show up as new ideas. I mean, another parallel that everybody, regardless of their workout routine, can appreciate is shower thoughts, right? Why do we have shower thoughts? It's because it's the exact same dynamics at work. Yep. There's nothing else to do. It's complete boredom. It's completely routine. We've done it a million times, so we're on autopilot in the shower, and it gives us this opportunity to see the world with a different lens, to have a different perspective on things, whether it's problems, whether it's opportunities, whether it's things that we're grateful for. And so the more opportunities you can inject into daily life to have that space, I think that it rewards you 10x.
There's an incredible parallel there, because this show, the Iron and Infrastructure podcast, came from shower thoughts. Now, nice. It was a compound effect of unconscious motivators over probably a 4 or 5 month time frame, and then it actually was the Iron and Energy was the original thought, and then within 30 seconds, Iron and Infrastructure, and then I came down to my office where I'm at now and whiteboarded for 20 minutes, and the description and everything was in that time frame. So within one thought in the shower and 20 minutes later, I had the whole entire show laid out. And you mentioned that. Sleeping is also kind of the same thing, where we have dreams or thoughts going into bed, and then unconsciously these motivators are kind of on our mind. So when you wake up, you might wake up in the middle of the night and have a different thought or something of that nature, and then it's the same with the shower. There's a lot of power in an unconscious thought or unconscious motivator, habit, routine, where you can just be present. A lot of creativity comes in them times. I know if you go on vacation and you actually disconnect from reality, a lot of people come back and they view the world completely different than what they do inside of a business or as an entrepreneur on a day-to-day. There's a lot of power in being present. I've had a lot of gratitude for being present actually in the last year or so, because it was hard for me to do before.
Yeah, and the perspective shift that comes from being able to change your context. I know we're both big fans of Strategic Coach, and yes. Dan Sullivan, the founder of the program, talks about all the free days he takes and how much good comes from those free days. And I think that free days allow you to get the space from problems, but also get you space from seeing the day-to-day. As long as you're papered up on your calendar, as long as you're completely buried under to-do list, you are absolutely not living into your unique ability, but you're also missing huge opportunities to see those, like you said with the podcast. I mean, how many times can you point to where there are these inflection points that come from incredibly short bursts of energy, focus, attention, and it has a huge impact on what the direction of your life is going to be. The more you can do it, I don't know why more people wouldn't try to avail themselves of it. And to your point about sleep, I very much feel the same way, that there are many opportunities, or there are many times rather, where I'm sleeping and I figure something out, or I think about something new in a different way, and I've got a pencil and pad at my desk. I don't want to pick up my phone in the middle of the night and write down the notes, but I'll write down, I'll sketch down things, midnight thoughts to myself next morning.
I do the same thing, and I'm bad about it, because I'll take my phone out, and from 1:57 a.m. to 2:30 a.m. I'll have a journal in there, because I know that there's power in what I had thought about, and I'm going to be pissed if I don't have it noted.
Man, well, that's tough for you. I mean, I know you're getting up at 3 a.m., so you're already looking at the clock there at 2:30 in the morning.
There's been oftentimes, Ryan, unfortunately, where right now, especially because I have a conviction with what I'm doing, it is so powerful. I'll wake up unable to go back to sleep at 1:30, and I'll go to the office for a couple hours before I even go work out, and I might go to bed at 9 or 10, but it's so strong right now. The conviction is, I'm so passionate about my day-to-day that there's days I just know I'm not even going to try to sleep. I'm just going to go do the thing, because I'll lay here and think about it for 2 hours and be mad I didn't get something done with it. But I don't recommend it. That's what I'm going to say. It's not recommended. I've recommended
not a best
getting
practice,
sleep.
right?
No, absolutely not a best practice.
What is out of curiosity? What is the strength conditioning weightlifting version of a marathon or long cardio type event? Is there a good analog for that? Is there some sort of long event that y'all do? When I'm really curious.
So powerlifting in itself is not an event that the feat is long, but the meet itself is very long. So you might go, powerlifting is a squat, bench, and deadlift, and you get 3 lifts at each one, but it might be an 8 or 10 hour day. So so as far as CNS, you have to exert all your energy for this short time frame. So you have to be completely locked in. I actually did my first powerlifting meet last year, and a good friend of mine, Tony Ramos, who was a legend at Westside Barbell, he actually told me, he's like, Jake, take a nap in between every set. And so when I started out squatting, so you do your squat, then you do bench, then you do deadlift. In my squat, I didn't get amped up enough for my first couple of squats, so I didn't do very good. And then after that, I took like a nap in between the squat and the bench, and then I ended up benching a PR after having a pec injury.
Oh wow!
And like it was an incredible thing to understand. I need to completely decompress, and I have to be completely calm. And I've seen it time and time again with people around me. Everyone else was running around all hyped up, just taking pre-workout all day, completely stimulated 10 times what their max would be. And they were so burnt out by the last set of lifts that they had no energy left. And I was fine. I was completely calm, and I'm not a calm person whatsoever, so I took the advice serious. And I was able to go in at the end, and I felt fine. Like that night, I was exhausted, but I felt fine in comparison to what I had expected. So powerlifting in itself, it's a very short burst of energy, but I'm telling you, Ryan, it is absolutely grueling on your body, mentally and physically.
Yeah, I can't imagine 8 to 10 hours of having to stay in, to be ready, and then
fight or flight mode,
just
like
energy
right
management. Yeah.
And energy management is the best way to put it. Also, CNS management. Your central nervous system has to react right now, and you're going to put weight, on your back or over your face that could kill you. It could break your back in half, snap your knees in half. On a bench press, I benched 410 in my last meet, so 410 pounds, over top of my face. I've dropped 385 on my chest doing a 5-rep max and training. And I couldn't hardly breathe right for 6 weeks or so. And it came right down on my rib cage. It slipped out of my hands. I've seen guys drop 800 pounds out of their hand, and it hit them. And I'm telling you, Ryan, there is something very incredible about having that over your face. And there's guys spotting you, of course, but you're not going to grab 400 to 500 pounds very quick when it drops out of someone's hands. It's right now. So it is a very mental taxing thing that most people wouldn't understand unless you've been in that arena. It's very powerful, though, to be able to face that fear of having that weight over top of your head and knowing that this could kill me. But, take that fear with you and show fear who's boss sometimes. So it's very powerful mentally to overcome some of them hurdles.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. How often would you do an event like that? Is it something you could do quarterly, or is it semi-annually?
Yeah, some of the guys probably do 2 to 3 a year. Some of them might do 8 or 9. Some of them try to do more. For me, I did the one last year. My competition is my day-to-day in my business world. So, I did it. I'll probably do another one sometime. But right now, that physical feat for me is not like a goal. But probably, I would say once a quarter would be fair. Maybe twice a year, depending on the level of competition. There are not like a ton of high-level events that guys will go compete at that, they can break world records or whatnot. So I would say there's probably 4 to 5 big events a year, and then, it would be focused on priority at that point.
Gotcha.
So you touched on something a little bit ago about strategic coach and about freedom of time, purpose, relationships, money. I think we align on that more than likely, being from coach. I want to segue right into something that you have been a huge part of, and I want to thank you personally for it. And I want to thank your business partner, Stephen Nooner, who is my coach and strategic coach. Shout out, Stephen Nooner, you're the best. So,
hey, Stephen.
I think what you guys have done is absolutely incredible. It has given me superpowers that I didn't know that I could have. Pun intended, because Superpowers, the business that you and Stephen founded together, has absolutely changed my life. My assistant, Dane, once again, I'm going to shout her out. Dane, thank you so much. Changed my life. She has absolutely been incredible. And I don't know the onboarding process, what you guys have done, but you want to talk about the ultimate level of freedom. Go get an assistant from Superpowers, because the amount of clarity that I have in my life now, the amount of organizational structure, and the amount of stuff I was doing that I hated to do and I sucked at both, is no longer there. And Dane has actually, taken the initiative on things that I could not believe she would just go do and be excellent at them, and I hated them. So it's been so much more than I would have ever expected. My business partner, Cody, the same result. He had hired someone from Superpowers. I actually just recommended a friend of mine to Superpowers, and I think he's in the process of getting onboarded now. Absolutely incredible. Ryan, I just want you to break down Superpowers and explain to the listeners what it does for somebody.
Well, man, thank you for the kind words, first and foremost. I'm so thrilled and happy that you have found so much freedom and growth in your EA relationship, your business partner, the same story. And that's our mission. It's really simple. Superpowers exist to help successful entrepreneurs achieve new levels of freedom and growth. And almost everybody we talk to feels like they're on this teeter-totter where they fundamentally, at their core, they want freedom from their entrepreneurial pursuits. They want the freedom, like you said, that Dan has the 4 freedoms: time, money, purpose, and relationships, right? They want that, but they know that they have to get growth to be able to get there. And so they prioritize growth and they sacrifice freedom. And then they whipsaw back and they prioritize freedom because that's really what they wanted. And they feel like they're sacrificing growth as a result. And so we think that you can get freedom and growth in your business. And one of the best ways to do that is with a really high leverage executive assistant. And I think that you've touched on the key mindset that separates people who get a lot of leverage out of this relationship from those who get only a little bit of leverage out of the relationship. And that is the understanding that while you're delegating down, you're actually delegating up to somebody whose those activities are in their unique ability, right? So take all the things that you look at as distractions and hate to do and loathe to do and aren't even particularly really good at, if you're honest with yourself, right? And you want to get those off your plate as fast as possible. But the reality is that you're giving them to somebody who that's in their unique ability. That is their superpower. That is what they are the best at and they enjoy doing the most. And so not only are the things being done better at a higher quality, more consistently, but that person is able to bring creativity to those efforts that you yourself would never be able to bring because your mindset around them is that they're a drag, that you don't enjoy doing them. And so if you can look at it as a delegating up to somebody into their unique ability, you will have such tremendous results and see so many new opportunities for ways to grow in that relationship. So I appreciate your mindset because I think that it speaks to the interaction that you have. And I don't think it's a surprise that you've got off to a fast start with your assistant as a result.
Whenever Dane first started working with me, I had to be very transparent about how I operate because I'm not traditional whatsoever. And I told her, I don't have a preference for what you do, how you do it. You take the keys to the car and you drive this damn thing because I'm an organizational dumpster fire. If I was any good at it, I wouldn't need you, So right. The delegate up approach, I really appreciate how you explain that because everyone listening needs to understand that you only have so many strengths and the rest are weaknesses. So our good friend, mutual friend, Ryan Henry, EOS implementer, such a good human. He talks a lot about things that you're great at and you like, things that you're good at and you like. Them should be the things that you do. Now, there are things that you're good at but you hate, and then there are things that you're bad at and you hate. If you're bad at it and you hate it, you absolutely should not be doing it, because it is a detriment to your productivity. And I know for me, I had been wanting an assistant for a while, and I couldn't find that right mix. And within 4 days, Ryan, 4 days, my life changed with Superpowers. The name fits the narrative, because Superpowers is exactly what I feel like it has given me. And you guys have figured out the process very, very well. I will recommend it to every single person struggling with any type of time management. We, as entrepreneurs, get in our own way more times than not with that rugged individualism and not breaking through that ceiling of complexity. And it's a lot of the times, the thing that's holding us back from getting where we want to go is our day-to-day habits and what we're doing. And the time management portion, I let it go. I said, Dane, just take over everything. You take it, you tell me what you need me to do. I'll work for you, essentially, because I know that I need this to grow. There has to be a level of vulnerability, though. You have to be willing to be vulnerable, and you have to be willing to admit that I suck at this thing, but it's okay, because it's not my unique ability. And like you said, delegate up to someone that's really good at it. And that's when the superpower, I think, comes together, is when the entrepreneur can realize the weakness, and then the EA can take the weakness as a strength and delegate to elevate. There's a lot of power in that.
100%. And I think that you're just, you're playing at a very advanced level here relative to the length of the relationship you've had with your EA. But I think there's a few parts of it. One of the things that you keyed into that you were open to, that you communicated early on, is one of the things that we look to get to as a milestone of a high performing executive EA relationship, which is that the EA should be the leader in the relationship and you're the boss, right? When your executive assistant knows you, understands you, and anticipates you, they're in a position to lead the relationship forward, and ultimately you're the boss, right? You make the decisions. 100%. I also think that you're unique in that, just having to get to know you better and subscribing to your podcast. One of the things that is very clear is that you have a lot of self-awareness, right? You have given thought to the things you are good at, the things you are not good at, beyond just the things you like and don't like doing. And I think that that's a really important component, that vulnerability, that transparency, that openness, that communication, really critical to putting the relationship into a high performing mode early on, right? So where we see struggles, where we see challenges, perfectionists, right, really struggle to lower their guard and show themselves as anything other than perfect.
Right.
And then folks who just control information and want to be a gatekeeper and maybe don't even realize that that's in their nature, but they're gatekeeping how much they're willing to show their assistant, both professionally and personally. And so the more you can be an open book and the more you can be aware of where you need reinforcement, it will prevent you from getting pretty good at things you're really bad at, versus spending that time being excellent at the things only you could do.
Yes, I mean, preach it, Ryan, because I'll tell you what, I look at the entrepreneur time system as something that I fully dedicated myself this year, 150 focus and free days both. And nice. having an actual free day in general, a committed full free day, is tough for me in itself, so just mind you that. But I committed to it this year. Whether I hit that or not, to be determined, but my EA Dane has taken that initiative of 150 free days, and she is putting them in my calendar and forcing me to do that. And she is keeping me accountable for the things that I am reluctant to go back to, and recovery is one of the top goals for me this year. Having a free day recovery system in place to know that I can maximize my productivity. So many people think the more time, day after day after day, that you put in, the more result you're going to get. But what I found in my past is I became a 7-day buffer day kind of person, and my efficiency rate was probably at 60%, where now on a true focus day, if I do something in 8 hours, if I'm focused for 8 hours in one day, I will do a week's worth of buffer day stuff, probably 2. The first time that I truly set out 2 focus days, 16 hours worth of things that I need to accomplish in 2 focus days back to back, after the first 6 hours of day 1, I didn't have anything left to do. And I thought, holy shit, there's magic in this, because this is something very, very powerful. And when you think about your thinking, like you mentioned earlier, when you're cognitive of what you're doing and focus solely on these things, no distractions, I'm focused on this today, these 5 things have to be done, it is super, super powerful to understand that this is a non-negotiable, I have to do it, nothing else matters at that time. And having that mindset makes your efficiency rate increase so much that you'd be amazed at how much productivity can be accomplished. And then when you add an EA in, especially from Superpowers, from my experience, it's 10x that, because what you put in a focus day, you might only do half of it. Or all the preparation work from that buffer day that you thought you were going to have, your EA can do it for you. The amount of talent that my assistant Dane has was absolutely mind-boggling to me, where she has skill sets that are 100x what I even thought was possible, and 500x what I have. At the end of the day, Ryan, for me, I don't care to be right, I just want to get it right. And I'm more than willing and vulnerable to know that I really suck at this, because for the greater good of where I want to go, self-awareness is a key component to that. And a lot of people don't have it, like you said.
You're absolutely right. Well, I'd be curious, what are some of the things that you did early on that you felt like set the relationship that you have with your EA on the right course? Because for a lot of folks, it takes more than 4 days, right? It takes, and we check in at the 30, 60, 90 day mark to make sure that the relationship is growing on track, right? We want to make sure that y'all are hitting the milestones together that would signify this is going to go the distance. But what were some of those early things that you feel like really built a good foundation?
I had a conviction that I knew this thing was going to work from day one. So going into it, probably a week or 2 before, when I was going through the onboarding process with Amber, I sent her everything that I had on me. I was hyper aggressive on, Amber, are you ready for this? Are you ready for that? I had my full profile from the unique ability standpoint and coach, the Clifton Strength Finder, the print survey, the Colby Index. I had everything put together. And then I had all my goals aligned, all my different business ventures. I made sure that I'm not organized, but I listed out everything possible to make the onboarding process easy. And I think that's huge for the transition. So it's an investment in the right now. You have to put more work in on the onboarding part, but it really took 4 or 5 days, and she had me figured out. So the more you do up front, the long-term, onboarding and the process going forward. I think we're just at 60 days, and she's in full control. I mean, I barely get in my email inbox, and that's probably been the last 30 days. She's been in full control of that. That's personal and professional. So she has she's fully managing my life. It's absolutely incredible power to know that I don't have to go in this damn email inbox and read something, then mark it unread and put it somewhere where I know I need to go back and read it and do something with it. I know at the end of the day that I have emails that are urgent that I need to check, and that's it. That's all I do. The amount of time saved, Ryan, is just incredible, but the work put in up front is the most important thing in my opinion.
I love that, and I think you're exactly right. I mean, that is one of the things that separates people who, again, get the quick start versus those who kind of struggle. Is they're not ready for it. They are unprepared. They don't make the time investment up front so that they can. And it truly is an investment, right? There is return on that investment. What was the tipping point for you? For somebody who says you're disorganized, you didn't have everything in one place. Like, there's a lot of reasons why maintain the status quo, not having this relationship, should have been the default. What was the tipping point?
I think the amount of time invested in and not having the result that I desired. So, if I spent an 18-hour day, working, it didn't have that return on investment because I was doing things that I hated to do that were taking too much time. And when I started the Iron Infrastructure LLC and the podcast venture, I learned a lot at that point that there's so much organizational disconnect for me and so much follow through that I don't have. I know I'm a 2 follow through. Time take shortcuts and I multitask. And I know that for the things I want to do in the future, I need someone just to organize me. And it would be a constant revolving door of overscheduling, overcommitting, and just burying myself in chaos because of the day-to-day mundane tasks that I just absolutely hate doing, that were bogging me down more than anything else. So I would commit to this thing thinking that it wouldn't be as much as it was, and it was 10 times more time invested because of my lack of skill set. So that was probably the big driver on that. It was really, man, I'm just not organized. I have podcast interviews to schedule. I have all this stuff that needs done. I have to go do this podcast process and try to get it all figured out. And I had none of it done. Dane did it all after she onboarded. And she was such a process person, check the box, go to the next one, that we counterbalance each other so much. It's so incredible how that partnership has worked out thus far, because every weakness of mine, she has as a strength.
That's another key, I think, distinction that we talk about as well, which is, and this is a challenge for folks, right? You want a complement, not a clone. And oftentimes we talk to folks who are like, well, if I could just have somebody who is exactly like me, then you'd have just 2x the same amount of problems you have with the same number of challenges, right? And you need somebody who has a very different skill set, a very different approach. And I think that's one of the things that we run into is like, well, I need them to be super high quick start, low fact finder like me. I want somebody who's in the trenches doing all the things that I'm doing the same way I'm doing them. I'm like, whoa. You actually need the exact opposite. You need somebody to do something with all that quick start energy. You need somebody to actually go out and implement and take the next steps and move through the checklist item by item so something gets done. Because if you don't have somebody who's your complement, if you just restrict yourself to a clone, you're not going to get the leverage that the relationship is capable of delivering.
No, and you just had fuel to the fire. If I had another,
that's right.
There isn't. I'm a high quick start as well, and I'm the visionary at R&R Pipeline. And if there was another visionary just like me, it would be chaos. I have essentially got fired from every operational position inside of the organization. You know, it was pretty humbling for me at the beginning of the year when I went fully into the visionary role. And my business partner Cody is the integrator, and he had meetings with crew leaders and managers. I didn't even know about them, and he called me after telling me how great they were. And I was like, well, holy shit, this is powerful. That used to be I used to be the operations manager before we bought the company. And it's like, well, that's like my baby being taken away from me, and you're having these meetings I didn't even know about it. And it was humbling and rewarding all at the same time, because I realized this is that next level of growth. This is where we're starting to really, really grow, because I'm focused solely on the future. I'm on the future of the business. The predictive index for Superpowers, I think, was a very, very great matchmaking onboarding tool. I'm a persuader, and I forget what Dane's index was, but describe that briefly, just the power in that predictive index and what you guys have found in utilizing that for the onboarding process.
Yeah, predictive index has been hugely helpful to us in understanding the personalities of both our prospective assistants, and it really helps us narrow down the pool early on. Right now, our average is one hire for every 1,000 applicants. Literally, we just did the math on this last week to update it for where we are in 2024. And so we have to have a series of tools, of resources, processes for us to narrow down to high likelihood good fits for this role, right? Of which there will only be a few. And predictive index is one of those tools for us. So it's very similar to culture index. If, your listeners have heard of that one as well, sort of two sides of the same coin. But really what it does is it is a survey that both our entrepreneurs, our clients take, and then their assistants will take as well, to figure out personalities that interlock really well. And so what it does is it asks you about what your preferred work style is, and then who you are as a person. And it's able to say, okay, you show up this way at work, but who you really are, core imprinted on your DNA, is more like this. And we can see if you're out of whack there. So are you showing up in your work context differently than you are at your core? And if that's the case, maybe you're having to sort of be a chameleon or show up and play a role in your work context because something's expected of you that's not true to who you are. So we can kind of see where that delta is and get a good understanding of, okay, this is who Jacob really is, and this is what he shows up at work as, right? And understanding those two dynamics, and then being able to layer in who would be a good fit for him, and what is their predictive index telling us about their autonomy versus their desire to work in a team, their sociability versus their desire to work independently, their patience versus their impatience level, and then their details. The fourth dimension is how detail oriented are they versus, don't show me the details, let's just go, right? So being able to find that complement, not the clone, predictive index for us has been a big part of it, and it's a great tool, and we've been big fans of it.
Just out of curiosity, because we talked a little bit about self-awareness earlier, how many times have you seen people lack self-awareness after taking a predictive index, or any type of paneling that you've seen, and say, oh shit, I'm not who I thought I was?
Yeah, it's surprisingly often. So I think that everybody who's received their predictive index has learned something about themselves. What is always really, it's almost like the parlor trick, right? Of, okay, I'm going to read this one pager on who I am. Okay, I answered a few questions. It took about 15 minutes long. Sure, tell me who I am. And you read it and you're like, oh my gosh, this is exactly how I show up. And this is exactly how I feel about things. And these are exactly the people I work really well with or don't work well with at all. And, these are the kind of tasks or projects or environments where I succeed. It's shocking how much detail, and there's a ton of science that backs it up. And it really shows in the results. So I would say that nobody's read their predictive index, culture index, whatever they use, and not learned something about themselves. Even if they knew it to be true, I think it gives you a vocabulary to describe yourself so others can understand you and work better with you as well.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like I'm relatively self-aware because I have taken the Colby Index and the Clifton Strength Finder and the Print and predictive index and the rocket fuel exam. And I'll tell you what, I make sure that I really study them and understand exactly what they say, and then I check myself before I talk about it, be outspoken to anyone else or showcase it to anybody else. I really take a deep dive into that and make sure that, am I doing what I think I'm good at? Am I really acting like the person that I am naturally? And what roadblocks are in my way that this is telling me I need to just remove? What barriers am I, putting in place that are unnecessary? There's a lot of power in self-awareness, and I just feel like so many people don't understand what the temperature of the room is sometimes, and just have to look in the mirror and say, look, you're not this person you think you are, and that's okay. It's not wrong. It's just not who you are. Now let's take that weakness that you think is a strength and push that to the side and find the true strength and unique ability, and then maximize it.
Absolutely. And I think the ability to understand and recognize what pulls you out of who you are at your core is one of the greatest assets you could possibly have, right? Because you can identify, this is making me act a certain way that isn't consistent with who I am, feel a certain way that isn't consistent with who I am or where I want to be, right? And be able to recognize those things. And some of them can't be avoided, but it is all good, valuable signaling that you aren't the right person to be dealing with that particular thing. And it's particularly early on, entrepreneur founders, folks who are starting from scratch, there's a strong bias and a strong pressure to be all things to all people all the time, right? You've got to be the best team builder and the most visionary leader and the most capable operator all at once. And obviously that's can't possibly be true, right? And so as you get to know yourself better, as you have the resources, you have the time to be able to build a team around you, it really is it's a unique asset to have that at the beginning of your journey. And I know that in the first 5 years of my entrepreneurial journey, I didn't have any of those tools. I was completely ignorant to them. And I think about how much more effective I've been as a leader, as somebody that people in the organization count on to make the right decisions. It starts with knowing yourself.
It truly does. And strategic coach has changed my life. I'm in, I think, year 4. Maybe 3, but I think it's year 4 actually. It is absolutely transforming every quarter. The last 4 or 5 quarters that I've went to coach, I have came back a completely different person. My narrative in life, my direction, paradigm shattering moments every time I've been a strategic coach. And I think the most powerful thing for me, Ryan, when I go now, I know that I belong there. And the first couple of years, I questioned if I actually belong there. Let's talk about adversity in life and overcoming adversity. And I'll share a little bit of mine just to kind of get it going. I questioned my own value for a long time. And when I first started this venture, the Iron and Infrastructure LLC really started with me writing a book telling my personal story. But it took some convincing from outside people in my network to say, dude, you just got to do the thing, because I was trying to put a book together that wasn't just about me. It was about a team effort, and the message was my story, but it wasn't directly my story, and it sucked. I wrote 3 chapters of a book, and I lit it on fire because it was horrible, because it was manufactured. And
right.
The power in being able to understand who you are and knowing that it's selfish not to share your story if you think you can help other people. It's not selfish. You're being selfish by not doing it. Me doing this show is not for me. The side effect has been the benefit, the return for me. This show is purely to help other people, to get other people aware and hopefully provide them value, to get past the sticking point, to expedite any type of adversity they might have. I have a passion for helping other people now because of everything I've been through and everything I've seen. Facing my fears was a huge milestone for me, but now being able to talk about it and hoping that I can inspire other people is one of the most powerful things that I've ever had happen in my life. And the show, as a side effect, has been therapeutic, has been rewarding in ways I would have never expected. I've met you because of the show, because of other people that I know. It has absolutely been life-changing to understand that me showcasing what I've learned, whether valuable or not to others, just putting it out there, if it changed one person's life, it's worth it. And it's changed a lot of lives already with the outreach I've had. And I'm just showcasing the opportunities that I've been able to create and maximize. And it is so powerful to help other people. I don't know if you've had any life-altering moments where you've been able to help others, but for me, this has absolutely been a blessing and a life enhancement to the fullest degree. And I have so much appreciation for it now, and understanding that to help other people, you have to be vulnerable enough to tell your story, to tell the sticking points of adversity, and it's selfish to not share it if you think you can help other people. Because being silent is a killer. It's a killer.
Yeah, I think there's so much wisdom in that. And I also know that you're the kind of person who appreciates and has gratitude for the journey rather than just the result. And so I know plenty of podcasters, and their goal is to have 1 million subscribers, or their goal is to have their podcast be a significant contributor to their personal income, to their, making a living, right? And they have all of these goals for the podcast, but they've forgotten the part that you intuitively understand, which is how can we help people? How can we enrich people along the way and the journey? And I think that's why no matter how many subscribers you have today versus a year from now, no matter how much money or new opportunity the podcast brings in today versus a year from now, that you will have been successful with the podcast because you're so committed to the process and of helping other people. And so I think your mindset about it really makes a difference for how you show up, for your expectations of what you get out of the podcast. It's more about what you give. And it really shines in the work, and no doubt, ironically enough, all of those factors, that mindset leads the podcast to be more successful than it otherwise would have been if you were just focused on a very specific result and hitting some target with every single episode.
Yeah. So I really look at success. I call it joy in the journey, not having destination disease. 12 years for one goal to buy R&R pipeline, and 2 days after the purchase, I was so gutted and empty, I didn't understand why. And it's like I just climbed this mountain for 12 years, barely made it, almost fell off the damn thing every day for 12 years. And it was everything I had. I pushed all the chips in. And when you get to that, what you perceive as Mount Everest, being up on top of that so-called mountain isn't the accomplishment. It's the climb to the mountain. It's the appreciation of every step along the way. And I have that now, and I didn't have it then. And now I just want to provide value, and I don't have an expectation of a return. But as you know this too, Ryan, that you want to provide value to other people, And the return is what is the side effect of the value, because the value is what sells. People buy people. They don't really buy products. So if you're a good person, you're authentic, and you want to provide value, the expectation not being there will come back 10x what you would have ever expected anyways, because the value is so much more, because it's real, it's authentic. The first episode that I recorded was horrible. It's authentic, it's raw. The camera picked up the damn audio. Corey Gregory had to take it to commercial break on my show because the camera's overheating. I didn't edit any of it. I want people to know that I'm putting myself out there, and I'm going to showcase every step of the way, because I'm enjoying this journey. And every day that I wake up, everything that I do, I enjoy. Anybody can label success however they want, but my success is what I'm doing right now. It's my day-to-day. And I find so much pride and joy in that. It's absolutely transformed my mindset.
Well, and I think, comparison is the thief of joy, right? And so I think this is one of the other aspects that you've really keyed in on, which is the process, the building, the growth, the things that you're going to learn along the way. All of those are actually things going according to plan because you expected them to happen, right? And oftentimes, I think one of the things that hold a lot of people back, because we have access to universal information 24/7. We can see every single best practice. We can see everybody at the very top of their game and don't have any of the context for the 10 or 20 years it took them to get there, right? We only see them as they are today. It creates this perfectionism, this analysis paralysis that sets in because you are inadequate on day one. You are not performing at the same level. You're not lifting as much. You're not getting as, polished a podcast product out there, right? It's the journey. It's the commitment to the journey. And one of the things that has really, because I struggle with perfectionism quite a bit, right? I'm a consumer of a lot of information. I always am comparing myself to, it feels like always, comparing myself to others who are further along in their journey. And it can really put me into quicksand. And so action is the antidote to fear, I think. Yes. Is one of the things that I constantly remind myself of. And I've gotten better about that over time. And the beauty of action is that it means you get more at-bats. It means the feedback loop of learning gets tighter. It means that everything that you incorporated from that first podcast is solved in the second, and you discover things that fixed in the third and fourth and fifth and so on. But if you never get past that first one or that second one, if you're not committed to the consistency and to the process, if you're only committed to the end result, I think you lose the opportunity to even go on the journey. Oftentimes people give up on themselves before they get started.
You touched on so many great points right there. Indecision is an absolute killer. Indecision to me is a silent killer. The more that a decision needs to be made and the longer that it takes, the bigger the thing gets. So part of the one of the programs that I'm working on, I came up with this concept, Pursuit 151. And I call it Pursuit 151. Pursuit by definition is the action of following or pursuing something or someone. Pursuit 151 is pretty simple. Everyone thinks, I have 100% confidence in this thing. Like hell did I have 100% confidence in this podcast. I still don't to this day. Self-awareness or reality, you call it whatever you want. It's the reality. I don't have 100% confidence even now. I probably had 60% maximum confidence whenever I first started, but I was 100% committed. So Pursuit 151, you have 200 shares, 100 commitment, 100 confidence. You have to have 100% commitment to the thing that you're pursuing. If you're not 100% committed, go back to the drawing board and figure out. You don't want it if you're not 100% committed. But I think you only need 51% confidence. At 51% confidence, you have enough confidence to know that you will grow over the time frame of commitment. You'll gain the courage and the capability, like the 4 C's from Strategic Coach. But you have to commit to the thing and just take that first step. Know what the end direction looks like and know what the first step looks like, and the rest will figure itself out. The perfect plan does not exist, and you know this from probably your political times where you had this perfect plan and everything was drawn out, and you take one step and then you get punched in the mouth, right? Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Well, plan to the point that you know, like that first step, what it looks like, have a direction. It'll work itself out eventually because there's so many variables in life that come our way that are uncontrollable. So Pursuit 151 is just that. When you're in pursuit of something, 100% commitment, 51% confidence, and go for it. If you don't have 100% commitment, 51% confidence, go back to the drawing board.
I love that. That's really beautifully said. And I think, you said, no plan survives first contact with the enemy effectively. Right. And that's certainly true. But I think even beyond that, my experience has been, Superpowers was my second business. Surely there are variables outside of my control that affected us on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis as we were building the business initially. But it was even the things I was fully control of. The vision I had for the business, here's what we were doing, here's how we're going to deliver it, here's what it costs. All these things were made up by me, right? And fully under my control. These were variables that I owned. And even then, those didn't survive first contact, right? I was getting punched in the mouth, even on the stuff that I thought was so great early on. I was constantly getting humbled in the first 12 months, frankly, of building the business. I'd do a sales call, and people will be very blunt with you when things don't land, don't make sense, don't fit into what they want and their vision of their bigger future. And so that constant tweaking and understanding that failure, that I was wrong. I had a good idea. At least I thought it was a good idea, found out it's not such a good idea, making those tweaks, communicating those tweaks, adjusting, getting the team rallied around them. Here's the 5th take. Here's the 10th take at something, right? We got to keep refining and remaking this. It's part of the process. And it doesn't feel good if you haven't been through it before, but I think that's the one thing that, having built a business previously and run it for a decade, I was prepared for in this one, is that all of those micro failures that add up to make you feel like you've had a defeated day is all part of the process, and it's all part of it. It's all good. It is all that necessary pain to get you to a better outcome.
Wow, that's absolutely incredible. The bumps in the road are where we learn. If everything went great, we wouldn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
So I look at like our journeys to achieve our individual success like a highway. We're on this highway to success, and failure and success are on the same highway. They're on the same exact road, because if you don't desire to have success, you'll never have failure. So you have to be going for something to actually have failure. But failure to me is really quitting. So on this highway to success, I look at it like the exit ramps off the highway are the failure. Now there might be time where the bridge is out, you got to go, off-roading to get back on the highway because of whatever happened. But ultimately, as long as you stay on that highway to, achieve your desired success, that is the joy, that is the journey. But you have to make sure that the trip on that highway is something that you do enjoy that process of. And I think one key thing that you kind of referenced, whenever times are the toughest is when we're getting ready to have a breakthrough. So problems to me are just a sign of progress. I have outgrown my current state of ability, and that is a problem, but it's really an opportunity for progression. So I just need to persevere through this time, and I'm going to progress in my life, no matter what the feat is. So embracing that moment, back to the gratitude, back to being present, is so powerful. This sucks. It hurts. It's emotional. I'm tired. I'm beat up, but I will never be in this position again. Ryan, think about some of the hardest times in life that you had and you overcame, and what happened on the other side. Regression provides progression. So anytime you're going through this sticking point and this thing that seems like such a big problem, I always tell people to focus on the solution and don't focus on the problem. 10% problem, 90% solution, because what you focus on gets traction, gets bigger. So if you focus on this problem too long, it's only going to become bigger. Take action, move past that problem, get past that first stage, and it will lead you to that progression. There is so much power in that, and understanding that pressure is a privilege. Problems are a sign of progress. There's nothing wrong with having these bumps in the road, because the more reps you do, the more capable you are. It's really a mathematical equation. The more reps you put in, the more capable you are, and it might take a long time to build that foundation, but eventually that 10-year struggle will progress you 100 years in a couple years. And there's so much power in understanding that the failure is quitting or giving up. Problems or bumps in the road are just part of the progression. You're just learning something new. And sure, it sucks, but enjoy it. It's part of the journey. It's what makes the stories remarkable one day when we look back and reflect.
There's tremendous reward in that. And again, to your journey mindset, which I think is just so ultra powerful for the way that you approach things. When you're dealing with a problem or a failure or a setback, there's no guarantee that your solution is actually going to solve that problem, setback, or failure, right? That you've created another opportunity for you to face failure again. And I think, Peter Thiel has this really interesting thing. It was like, what contrarian thing do you believe? And one of the ones that I've read that he believes is that failure is over deterministic, that people learn too much from failure as opposed to success, because if you take away the lesson of your failure and say, oh, well, that's how the world is, that's not necessarily guaranteed to be true, because there are 99 other ways you could have failed, right? There are ways you could have failed more spectacularly. You could have made a real mess. Instead, all you have is a small mess. And so failure doesn't mean, problem solving doesn't mean you're immediately going to get to the solution either. There's a lot of testing, a lot of feedback that you get along the way. And that process is so valuable to creating something that is great, because at every opportunity where you have failures or problems, you're getting feedback, you're seeing where the friction is, you have an opportunity, it's an invitation to make a change that improves your product, your service, whatever it is you're doing. So I'm a big believer that the failures are a blessing, and that there's something that we should lean into. I actually saw that the CEO of NVIDIA, which is on a terror right now. I wonder, we're looking back, I wonder what we'll think about NVIDIA. It's March 2024 and they're on top of the world. But he says that, one of the things that he tries to inculcate in the culture of NVIDIA is pain and suffering. He thinks that in pain and suffering, you build resilience, and that resilience is one of the most valuable cultural components to a successful business over the long haul. And so he wishes pain and suffering. He says, oh, this is a challenge. This is an issue. This is something that we're going to have to get really deep into to solve. It's pain and suffering. And he says that that's a good thing, that builds the resiliency and the strength of an organization. It's one of the big cultural values that he personally feels like it's his job to instill.
Well, what happens in hard times? When a team of people are having the same hard time, the same impact, the same emotion, it creates unity like no other. You look at any kind of any type of team, or in the sports realm, where a team member passed away or something happened that was tragic to that team. It creates unity and such a bond that it can't be stopped. And it's very powerful when these hard times come to a group of people that all feel that same burden, because everybody is fighting for the greater good at that point. And that's what we're doing in our pipeline right now. And I'm really excited to see where we're able to transition to that next spot with R&R, because we're going through this transition time and we're really starting to get that unity together. Everyone's starting to just grow together and evolve together. We're all going in the same direction. And I am so excited to see what the future holds for that. There's so much to that. The pain and suffering, though, it's very, very powerful. I actually, every once in a while, I'll ask my daughter, she's 6 years old and in kindergarten, so I'm kind of just going easy, but I'll ask her, did you try something today that you weren't able to do? And letting her know that the failure is okay, to recognize it and to keep trying, not to ever give up trying, different things, and that failure is just part of the process. Because I think, especially in today's generation, failure is deemed this detriment and not an educational standpoint. I look at life like this. To me, I win or learn, I never lose, because I'm constantly going to take whatever happens and learn from it, or I'm going to win from it. But either way, there's no losses in life. I'm going to win or learn.
I love that. That's brilliant.
So I actually came up with this. I'll just go through it real quick, just to talk about process for problem solving. Because of me being an organizational dumpster fire and lacking clarity sometimes in what I'm trying to accomplish. So if someone has a problem in R&R, I would often solve the problem or try to solve the problem, and then I would uncover 3 more, and then I would make chaos and not create clarity. So I created a simple thing for me, being self-aware or just knowing that I have a pain point. I call it my 5P problem solving process. The first step is presentation. So I present all of the facts of the situation. What is the reality, the black and white measurables of this situation that I want to manage? I need to know the actual facts. So I request the facts, and I sit in the seat over there from a third-party viewpoint almost, where I'm looking at it from a non-emotional standpoint, completely logical standpoint. What is factual information in this current situation. And then I go to the partnership. Who's on the team? Who do I want on the team to build around me? So get the people on the team that I want to assemble, and then make sure there's 100% commitment. So presentation, partnership, and then go to the planning. The third P is planning. Make sure that everyone's committed and focus on the solution. Like I said earlier, 10% on the problem, 90% on the solution. And the planning phase is important for me to take action fast on, because if you don't take action fast, if there's indecision, what happens is that problem gets bigger no matter what, because it's focused on too much. So then after the planning, you go right to performance, take massive action, overcome the thing, and execute and execute the plan. And then after that, one thing that I think is overlooked is reflection. So the fifth P is prosperity for me. After you figure out what the solution is, reflect on the accomplishment in a positive light, because positivity mindset is an absolute driver for me. Reflect on what you learn, but also recognize what things happen to get to that point of having this problem, and then make sure that you don't have things in place that are going to lead that to reoccurring. So it is so important to make sure that that is the case, that you make sure that everything that happened that led to it can be mitigated in some degree. And win or learn, never lose.
I love that. And I love that you have a framework for it, and that you can teach that to your team for how to evaluate different situations, and how you can give them predictability and how you lead in the organization as well, that you're going to approach it with a very clear framework, and you're going to look for these things. I think that's really powerful. It reminds me of, I know we're both kind of strategic coach disciples here, but it really reminds me of some of the tools that coach gives you, but then you can also push down on your team. And the one that it reminds me of particularly with your prosperity P is the experience transformer, where I think a lot of times the experience transformer, and to those who are not in the coach world, you can Google it. These tools are, I think, fairly widely available. This is sort of the core set of strategic coach tools, but it's, how looking back at an experience, it's a thought exercise of how you would change it or get to a different outcome. And oftentimes it's used in that context of something negative, something that's gone off the rails, right? But I actually think that there's tremendous power. This is one of the things that was taught to me in coach, is use the experience transformer when something went well and you want to replicate it in the future. How do you memorialize the environment, the activities, the follow through, whatever it was that made that moment special, right? And this is the kind of thing that I want to jar and have in my business for the rest of all time. Capture it within an experience transformer and create a system where you recognize and reward not just the end result, because that's what everybody's natural inclination is to focus on, is the end result. But what's the process? What's the thinking? What's the effort? What's the thing that you, as somebody else on the team, could recreate to get that end result as well, and break that down?
So good. Such a good transition to that, because the experience transformer, that and the impact filter for me have been life-changing. Absolutely
those are gold.
Both of them. They're the most basic. They're two of the 5 basic tools in coach. Probably the impact filter probably being the number one most used. Experience transformer, I'd say, would be the second, more than likely. And it's so powerful to understand the basics. We get so caught up in complexity. Okay, you have a thing, impact filter, lay it out. How many impact filters have you done and then said, oh shit, that's a horrible idea, I'm not even going to send that to anybody, that's embarrassing? Because when you actually break it down in a simple fashion, it's much more clear than what it just is up here when you're envisioning it. And then how many times have you had what you thought was a bad experience actually be a very good learning lesson that you didn't recognize, and the experience transformer laid it out for you? I know for me it's been multiple times, both scenarios have happened.
Yeah, and having our team have access to the experience transformer, and putting a culture of, if something goes wrong, let's just fill out an experience transformer before we talk about it, and let's review the experience transformer. Let's talk about what went into the thought process and the why behind a bad outcome, and let's work through it. It's a great tool, and it's all in this vein of coach, giving you tools to have better conversations with yourself so you can have better conversations with others. Mm-hmm. Very powerful.
It is very powerful, and something that I'm 100% on board with. Same as you. So I want to touch on one more thing. Knowing that you were in the political realm, I'm assuming that you're somewhat of a history buff. And I went to a seminar in Chicago last year, and it was talking about the energy sector in general, but from a global standpoint. and the economic impact over time, and the workforce demographic and what we're coming into now from a blue-collar workforce standpoint. So the workforce development part of our industry is something that I have been very proactive on in the last couple of years. We're developing a program at R&R Pipeline that I came up with a couple of years ago called the Pipeline of Prosperity. What are you putting in your pipeline to become successful? And I had a newsletter, and I did a lot of things within that. And we're getting ready to transition fully to R&R and develop it. And I look at value for others, personal development. I want to create so much value for everyone at R&R Pipeline that they would have the opportunity to leave if they wanted to, but we create so much opportunity internally and treat people so good and create so much value for them that they never want to go anywhere. And success to me, everyone has to identify individual success, but ultimately the team around me being successful is more important than me being successful, because I know if everyone else is successful around me, my success will grow. I'll evolve too. If you're on a one-lane highway by yourself and you don't have a team around you trying to support that success and bring themselves up, more than likely you're not going to get where you want to go. And I look at a collaboration, a partnership. I am a partnership person through and through, and I know that I can achieve so much by myself, but I know what the cost is going to be. So I look at the investment versus the cost from what's the cost going to be for me personally and professionally? How much wear and tear is going to put on my body to do this by myself in comparison to having other people around me? So I'm a person that's all about partnerships and collaboration. And so taking this mindset now in this generation, let's reverse it 90 years to 1933, 34 time frame, where the Great Depression was at the forefront. Economic downturn, very quick, and everyone has a scarcity mindset 90 years ago, where it is a tooth and nail fight to survive. And it showcased the blue collar generations from, the last 3 or 4 generations in the workforce percentage and blue collar world, how it's decreasing rapidly. And there's so much pride, and I know this because this is what I went through personally, so much pride, and I did this, and it's all about me and I in our industry. And it's an older generation thing where there's not much collaboration effort there. And whether it's been a natural thing for me because I had adversity with it, or as strategic coach, whatever it may be, I just realized there's a lot of power in people around you. And so I look at the Great Depression and the scarcity mindset. There was not an abundance of anything. Everything was a fight. We have an abundance of almost everything in life now. We have instant news, instant technology. You can get food on any street corner. If you got $5, you can get food within, if you're in a city, your options are endless. So I think now we have a scarcity of work ethic and passion and desire because everything is instant. Have you seen anything of that nature with the current workforce? And I know the blue collar world isn't something that you're probably real tuned into, but just in general, do you see this massive gap of determination and passion for people because we have such a abundance of resources and technology now that it ends up becoming a scarcity of passion?
That's a really interesting turn of a phrase. It's a really interesting perspective. I've not thought about it from that perspective before, but it makes a lot of sense to me. I think that it is a really challenging environment right now for labor in the United States. We're undergoing a big change that's probably largely accelerated by COVID, but was already happening regardless. I'll give you just one example that I think might resonate to what you were saying there, which is when we started Superpowers, it was, call it first, second quarter of 2020, right? Was when we were beginning to get some traction. And of course, as we all know, that's when the pandemic happened and we had this big shift to work from home as now something that was going to be normal for almost everybody, right? That work from home was going to be a possibility, certainly in, information worker work, right? And so we thought this is a great opportunity to go hire executive assistants in the United States and give them an opportunity to work from home while our entrepreneurial clients will come around to the idea that your EA can work from home or work remotely, not be in the office for you, and still be high leverage, highly effective, right? And so that was the plan. We're going to go hire from the US exclusively, and we did that for 18 months, and it was honestly, it was a disaster for us. There was no price point we could pay our team at that would keep them engaged in that role and doing it with the kind of consistency and rigor and attention to detail, but also the thirst and the hunger for personal growth and development that's so critical to this role. Yeah. One of the biggest things that we realized in the course of this business over the last 4 years is that the assistants who have a growth mindset are the ones who are going to be successful, because I know that if I talk to you in a year, and you know if you talk to me in a year, our futures will be bigger. We'll be doing more at higher levels with even bigger, better collaborations, right? That's the trajectory that we're supremely confident that we're on, right? That our bigger future is tomorrow and that we'll keep growing. Well, as long as that's the case and your assistant doesn't have a growth mindset, the gap between you starts to get bigger and bigger as time goes on, right? And as long as they view your growth as new opportunities for risk, uncertainty, unpredictability, different kinds of work, and they see all of that as a drag on them, then that relationship is going to go from really good to really bad very quickly. You're going to outpace their ability to grow. And so this is a long way of saying we found a lot of that in the US-based workforce. Your question of how are we getting such great results in your example, it's curriculum, coaching, and community. Those 3 C's, curriculum, coaching, and community, are our secret sauce. And our US-based staff overwhelmingly saw that as more work. And now that we're hiring exclusively in the Philippines, they recognize, and I'm generalizing here, but they've been really highly correlated to length of relationship generalization. So I feel very convicted about this. Our Philippines-based talent sees that as growth opportunity and investment in their professional development.
Yes.
And so that was the big change. We went almost down to 0 revenue at month 18 to rebuild the business with folks that we knew were going to be able to go on this growth journey with us and our clients. And, in our business, our collaborations effectively with our team, the individual executive assistants, are literally how we deliver our product or our service, right? You can kind of think about it like a flight attendant. Once you can train them on the ground, you can give them all the professional development on the ground, but inevitably they go and they do their job disconnected from leadership or management, up in the air where nobody's really supervising them on a minute-to-minute basis. And you have to have a high degree of confidence that they're going to deliver the experience that you want consistently every single time. And that's why we made that big shift away from the US-based talent. And that it pains me because I thought that this was going to be a great opportunity for US-based executive assistants to get a good job that had a really great opportunity for growth in the future. But we've just had too much success going overseas with it to deny that there's something substantially different, something fundamentally different there.
It's amazing because I've seen it personally. And part of my onboarding with Dane, I told her, you have to evolve with me or it's not going to work. Your growth is just as important as my growth. I told her, in Slack, one of our channels is her dreams. What does she want to do in life? I want to help her achieve her dreams because I know if she's always constantly going for a goal or a target, she's evolving. And investing in other people is so powerful. I had someone that was a consultant in our organization years ago. We were talking about something that financially didn't make direct sense for the business, but it was an investment for our team. And he's like, Jake, what happens if you invest in everyone and then people leave? I said, what happens if we don't? What happens if we don't invest in the people and they stay? What's that say about our company? Where are we going with that? If they leave, it's because me as the owner did not provide them opportunity to grow, and I'll eat that. But I'll be damned if I'm not going to invest everything that we can in everyone else, because we are only going to go as far as everyone else on the team. My evolution is only going to take us so far. It's more important about everyone else's evolution to maximize the potential for everybody. It's a unity thing, and I love your message with that. Absolutely powerful. It's a superpower, Ryan. You figured it out.
Well, we're so grateful to be able to help you and fellow entrepreneurs. It's why we get up every day in the morning. We really feel strongly about the value of that relationship, what's possible when that relationship is dialed in and performing at a high level. We've seen it enough times to know that we're making a difference as well, and that's really part of our mission. I mean, that is why we do it.
Just because I'm so glad that you came on the show. This show is brought to you by Superpowers. If you want a 10x your life, go to Superpowers. Ryan, where can we find Superpowers at? What's the website?
You're too kind. Superpowershq.com. Superpowershq.com.
Guys, if you want a 10x your life, Ryan, Stephen Nooner, you guys are amazing. If you want superpowers in your life, go to superpowershq.com. Ryan, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was an absolute privilege to have you on.
Hey, man, it's been a joy. Thank you. I really appreciated it.
All right. Iron and Infrastructure Podcast. That's Ryan, Cassin. We are out. This episode is brought to you by Max Effort Muscle. For all your supplement needs, go to maxeffortmuscle.com.